Well, welcome folks to the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum. The Grassroots Show has come to the museum here today, and boy have we been lucky. We've got Shane Carson here to kind of help show us around, and we're going to look at just a few of the things that are on display here. And Shane, gee, what a terrific place for sprint car fans. Well, fans in general.
Fans in general. I mean, it'll take you back to the days where sprint car racing got going. It'll take you back to a few years ago when certain guys were dominating.
Right.
It will take you back to a period of time where you don't get to see anywhere but here.
Right. And we're also, what we're going to try and do is kind of go through the eras a little bit if we can, and show you how sprint car racing evolved. And we're just going to touch on a few things because I've found out these videos, if you get them much over 30 minutes, people lose interest.
Right.
Sorry, but it just happens. But anyway, Shane, let's start off with this car we've got right here beside us. I see Troy Ruttman and Bill Vukovich both drove this.
They did, and it was an Agajanian involved with this car, which the Agajanian family started Ascot and continue to stay involved in motorsports. And I just thought it was cool to have it here. If you look at it real close, it's got a yellow side and a black side.
Yes.
And that's kind of the story of the car. It had two different identities. And all the information is right there on the boards. It's on loan from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So we don't get to keep it, but it's here now, and it's a great opportunity to have something like that here.
Well, that's one of the things I think the fans do need to know is that these displays do kind of move in and out, and there's new stuff coming in. So maybe if you were here last year or 2 years ago, you can come in now, and it's probably going to be something different than what you saw 2 years ago. But these cars that were two-colored like this, especially shooting video for me, really throw me off. Because when they come down the front straightaway, you're seeing black, and then the back straightaway, it's yellow.
Well, we came looking for it today. You thought it was yellow, and it is, but it's over there.
It's on the other side.
That was good. That's a good thing, and that's why they did it that way.
But this power plant, I presume this is an old offie.
Right, and it's the Malloy Special. And Troy Ruttman, which was a guy that was born also in Oklahoma, but a racer that went to very, very high levels through his career, and he was just a cool guy. I know a lot of his family, and they still come out to the Hall of Fame for the inductions and all. So we get to visit with them, and it's just a really neat piece. If you get a chance, come check it out.
Yeah. Weren't both of them also Indy drivers?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. Troy Ruttman went to Indy, and so did Vukovich.
Yeah. Interesting piece, but like I say, we're kind of on a conservative schedule here, so I'll tell you what, Shane, let's move on to something else.
I'm ready if you are.
Well, Shane, we've moved almost to the back of the museum here, and we've come up with a car here, the Mcgowan Brothers, a car from Sedalia, and it was driven by Ken Taylor.
Yes.
And I think this is probably as close to super modified as we're going to get.
Yeah.
I see leaf spring in the front.
Right. You know, these cars back in the early '60s were built for out of pieces, some sprint car pieces, but that was a whole separate class. They run Marshall, Missouri, Sedalia, and actually the very first Knoxville Nationals was the super modified Nationals. And it had cars just like this. And this car may have ran in it. But yeah, I like seeing those again. I like coming out and showing people the old cars like this. And of course, we have the Bob Trostle Garage here, and we got a lot of cars that are pretty interesting to look at along the way.
This kind of reminds me of the era, and I have to throw a shout out to my cousin Charlie that raced during that era. I know his was pretty much a homemade car, kind of like what you're looking at right here. Not quite a sprint, but more like a super modified, which they ran quite a bit back in those days, but nonetheless very racy and always competitive.
Totally, and you know, the good thing about it is everybody had their own ideas, and you know, you could build a car with your own ingenuity and make it your own personal race car. Where the later days, especially now, there are bought cars.
Right. Oh yeah.
From the builders, almost every car is the same. So I kind of like those days, and we don't get to see that anymore. So it's kind of cool to come to the museum and actually see that.
I think the other thing about these cars too, it was probably when the Chevy V8 was first coming into prominence as a race engine, and boy, just a bunch of these guys just ran those. In fact, I think if I remember right, Charlie used to go buy Corvette engines.
Stock
at the Chevy dealer.
Just right off the showroom or out of the parts department. They put them in the cars, race them, and they race them all year.
Almost
Too
where
bad we couldn't keep that like that.
Well, I was going to say, it's almost where we're at right now with crate motors.
Yeah, crate motors is not a bad thing for a weekly racing program. It's not bad at all.
Yeah. But folks, like I say, as close as we can get to an old super modified. I hope you can see enough of it. I'm sorry. If I had a cameraman, we could maybe do some panning, but let's move on, Shane. Like I say, almost a super modified.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Well, Shane, I know you are familiar with this building here because I think you were in this thing many, many times with Bob Trostle. I presume this is from his garage, which was right here around Des Moines.
Yeah, it was in Des Moines, and it was on 14th Street in Des Moines. And when I moved to Iowa to be a racer, I worked out of this shop. So when we had to do a display around it, Bob told us to go over there and get a hold of the front of this building and put everything back together, which we did. And Bob was very instrumental in making that all work.
Yeah.
He was still alive at that time. He passed away a few years ago, but we were able to preserve the history of the Bob Jostle Racing garage. Really, this was the factory.
Yeah. You want to tell us about the hole in the door?
we do have a hole in the door behind us, and it's a.
Sorry again, we can't see it, but it's there. Take my word for it.
It's one of the walk-through doors, and we had a hole cut in the bottom of the door, and it's about a 2-inch diameter hole, and everybody's like, "What is that for?" Well, in the winter in Des Moines, it's like 30 below. On a good day. So nobody wanted to go outside and get the tubing, but one guy'd go out there and he'd slide it through that hole in the door and he'd run it over here to the wall, and as soon as it butted up against there, we'd chop it off there, and that was the length of the frame.
That was the length.
So he would bend it and weld it and weld it right there in the shop.
Yeah.
So this shop's got a lot of character. Put it that way. This car here is the one that I won the championship with in '78. Doug Wolfgang won the Knoxville Nationals with it in '77. So on the 25th anniversary of that car winning the Nationals, they had restored it back to its original color. And they got a hold of me, and I came up and did the pace lap for the Outlaw race for the Nationals.
That sounds like fun.
In 2002.
Yeah.
So that was the 25th anniversary.
I'll tell you what, let's you and I move over so they can see the Vice Grip car. Let's just go back over here and you can tell them about that, and hopefully they can see that.
Yeah, the Vice Grip car was a car that we built in 1980, and that was that was the latest of the Trossel lightweight cars. So we built that car special. The roll cage is a little lower for me.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
I didn't stick out very far, so the roll cage was lower. We ran it for a while at the first of the year. I wasn't very comfortable with it. I wanted to go back to this car, which we ended up doing, but he kind of threw that car out the back and never ran it. And the Nationals that year in August of 1980, Steve Kinzer got in trouble on the first day and crashed or something. He needed a car. Bob says, "Well, we got this old car out here that Shane Carson didn't really like." And they said, "Well, we'll take it." So they went and ran it, and they did a little work on it, and he won the Nationals that year, 1980. His first national win.
Yeah. Did that make you feel bad?
Very bad.
I bet so.
Yep.
But so I think you told me when I talked to you on the phone the other day that there's still stuff hanging in the walls here that wrenches and stuff and whatever that you actually used.
Yeah. I mean, if you look around the trophies and the walls that have different pieces on it. The same refrigerator was here. I put half those stickers on there in the 70s. So it's got a lot of character, and it's always fun to come back here. This is where we will do the autograph sessions that start on Wednesday. They run from 10 in the morning until 3 every day with a different selection of drivers. We're going to have about 70 drivers.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
When it's all said and done.
Now, is that included in the ticket price to get in?
In the ticket price to get in the museum, yes.
Yes, and that's included in that, and then come back here and get autographs. Wow, that sounds like a really deal.
Yep.
Well, I hate to take you away from all these memories, Shane, but let's move on, buddy.
I'm ready.
Well, Shane, we've moved on to the Bryan Clauson display here in the museum, and I was so impressed when I was here before with the display that they have for Steve Kinzer, but this is just about as impressive here as that display was. But I understand you were telling me earlier that Bryan started out with the number 7 back here. Correct. I guess that's a micro sprint.
Correct. It was micro that he ran on the West Coast, and he ran a lot of the same tracks that those kids that you hear about right now, Carson Macedo, Kyle Larson, Rico, those guys came from out west too. So they were kind of in parallel, the backgrounds paralleled a little bit running those type of cars. And then of course Bryan immediately got into midgets, started working his way up. He was able to get in with a driver development program with Chip Ganassi. That was, I'm gonna have to think that was close to 2006 probably.
Okay.
And he was given an opportunity, but that was also about the same time the sponsorship money was kind of drying up for NASCAR, and they had trouble funding some of those programs. So Bryan came back to us. He came back to racing open wheel. Dirt and pavement. That's a pavement midget right there.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to ask you about. I didn't know he ran that much pavement.
I tell you what, Bryan was really good on pavement, and he was just a good racer on his way up. Yeah,
without a doubt. I'm sure with that background coming from something where it was kind of loose, to get into that pavement racing had to help him quite a bit.
For sure. I mean, you drive it right on the edge, and that's what you do on an Indy car. And, you run that car on the edge, and you got to have a great feel for it. You don't want it to get away from you.
I know you folks can't see it, and I probably shouldn't do this, but we've got a shroud off of one of the Indy cars sitting right here beside us, and you're not going to be able to get it in the picture, I don't think, but it just shows the versatility from a micro sprint, pavement sprint, Indy. Man, the guy had the talent, without a doubt.
Yep. We miss him every day.
Boy, without a doubt, what a talent. Let's move down and we'll show a few more cars. Well, Shane, I guess it's up for debate about whether Bryan was better in a non-wing sprint car or a wing sprint car, in your professional opinion.
Well, obviously he was just working his way into a wing car, and he picked it up really quick. But his expertise and what he was excelling in was the non-wing stuff with USAC, and I felt like that gave him a great opportunity to move into other types of racing where you're right on the verge of being loose, and these cars are a lot looser than an outlaw car. Outlaw cars are stuck pretty good, and you drive them totally different. But Bryan was one of those guys that could do both.
Yeah.
So, and he was definitely well on his way. I believe that right before Belleville, he was driving this car right here, the wing car, and he was qualified for that Knoxville Nationals 360A main.
Yeah. I so enjoy the non-wing. I mean, to me, it just brings back so many memories of years ago. And of course, when USAC comes to town, usually at Lakeside, I really enjoy going out and watching those races. But man, them guys, they hang them out so far.
They do.
When they go into the corners sometimes, you just have to think the transition had to be difficult for him. But there again, shows the talent that the guy had to be able to change over.
Well, it's just like when he got in an Indy car, none of us had driven anything like that, and he hadn't either. So he got in an Indy Lights car and immediately got into an Indy car and was right in the hunt.
Yeah.
And I feel like that it's all because of his background in open wheel dirt, open wheel pavement, that allowed him to do that.
Yeah.
And he was able to get in that car and go.
Yeah. Well, Bryan, we sure miss you, buddy, and very too young to be taken from us the way that it was. And all we can say is we'll always, have you in our minds and our thoughts. I know sometimes just every race I go to or whatever, I see a 39 or whatever, and of course I think of Bryan. But Shane, let me say thank you to you for taking the time here on a really busy day, first night here at the Capitani Classic, kicking off the 410s. And I appreciate you taking your time here at the museum.
Well, thank you. Things are really happening around here. The museum is open every day during the Nationals and actually all year round, except for I think it's New Year's Day. So if you get a chance, come out and make a trip through here. You'll be glad you did. And
if I understand correct, $5.
That's correct, $5.
I mean, golly, we spend so much money on so many other things, especially in or around racing. $5 seems like a bargain.
It is a bargain.
And I'm telling you, folks, when you come in here, you're going to see stuff that's just going to blow your mind as far as I'm concerned. Because some of these cars, they look way better than they ever did racing, kind of like what I'm looking at with Bryan's car here with all the rock chips off the side compared to this Doug Wolfgang car over here, just as shiny and everything that it can be.
Total restoration there. This one came right off the track.
Yeah, but like I say, $5, man. You got to do it. It's got to be one of the things that's got to be on, if not your bucket list, just anytime you're in Knoxville, come by. But once again, Shane, thanks a lot, buddy. It's been a pleasure.
You bet. Thank you.
Shane, we're up on the upper deck of the Bryan Clauson Suites here at Knoxville, a new addition to the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. And gee, what a fantastic facility it looks like. Can you tell us a little bit about how this came about?
Well, it started out as a dream. And look at it now. But in 2016, when Bryan was in the crash at Belleville, when he lost his life, 2 days later we all showed up in Knoxville, and everybody's talking about it. Everybody's thinking about it. Rich and Jennifer Marshall, who were good friends of mine from years ago, were just thinking, what can we do? How can we make this, do a memorial in his honor? What can we do? And so I got them and Bob Baker together. Bob Baker is the executive director for the Hall of Fame. They got together, they came up with a plan, they came up with a dream that now you see as a reality.
Right.
So that's basically how it happened, and it incorporates new suites, and they have a Clauson Marshall suite right below us. So people that get to come out and see this, they get to see a view from where we're at right now that you've never seen before. And it's really amazing, and certainly something that everybody dreamed about, and it's actually happened. So come to Knoxville and see it. It's very impressive.
I'm glad that we're getting the opportunity to do this video because I think actually when you're in the stands on the other side, you see there's something over there, but I'm not sure people are aware that it's in honor of Bryan Clauson, and it is a tremendous facility. I mean, we've had the opportunity to walk through and see some of the suites and whatever, and what a tribute to Bryan. I'm sure his face would just be lit up. I mean, the guy had a tremendous smile to begin with when you talked to him.
Oh, no, we did the ribbon cutting on this in June, and actually we did it in right before the season started, so it was in April. And then we came out, and the first night of the season it was open, and people were in here enjoying it, and it's been happening all year. So this is the first Nationals that we've actually been here. So people that are involved in the suites here are going to love it.
Yeah. Once again, folks.
Looking forward to it.
I'm sorry, Shane. Once again, the Bryan Clauson Suites here at the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame. What a great addition. Shane, we've got to move on, buddy.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for coming.